Hey, what's up, guys? It's Adam from Rescue Michigan here, and I am with, once again, Shane Trejo, Operations Officer for Rescue Michigan, and the distinguished chair of the 11th Congressional District Republican Committee. And tonight, we're going to be talking about some current events, and I think we're going to also have a bit of an extended discussion talking about loyalty, party loyalty, political loyalty, and what that means, where we position ourselves, and perhaps what some other people mean when they're talking about party loyalty. But hey, how's it going, Shane? What's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just been working very hard to promote our Pancakes and Politics event in Milford. That's coming up on Saturday morning. So getting signs out and booking new speakers, and just working hard to make sure that event is a success in Milford on Saturday morning.
Right on. Well, the first thing I wanted to share with you, well, share with our audience, you already know about this, but we got a call, we both got contacted from Merce News asking for a comment relating to Anne Boleyn. And you actually got something, I think, a little bit more sophisticated than I did, because you got an email from them. I got a text message. And for members in the audience that might not know, Merce News it's a media outlet, but it's not your average media outlet. What Merce News is, and there's actually two of them. There's Merce News and Gongwer. And these are essentially media outlets, especially for politicos, the political class. And what they do is they charge a lot of money for their reporting, and they're very focused on Michigan politics. So the people who subscribe to them are legislators, lobbyists, political consultants, those types. They're very expensive. It's not something that normal people would sign up for, because I think the last time I heard, the subscription rate's like $750 a month or something like that. So this is a publication for Lansing insiders, basically.
And I read Mers and Gonwer generally when they're copy and pasted onto Facebook by someone.
Now there you go. When I worked in the legislature, we got free subscriptions, but they were paid for by the House. So that's how we got them. But anyway, they were asking about Anne Boleyn, and I guess they were asking for our source, where she said she was against election audits. And stranger reporter would ask us to disclose our sources. There's a reason why reporters don't do that. Now, maybe I will obtain the permission of the individual to send that, but I mean, I know for certainty. I recognize the email address it was sent from. I have full confidence in my sources, so there's that. And then they also asked, does this mean you will oppose Boleyn if she seeks nomination for Secretary of State, or will we back another candidate? And I'm not going to comment on that. It's way too soon. We don't even know if we're going to be endorsing candidates, because with that comes a certain limitation on political freedom. So why answer any of those questions? I don't know. But it reminded me also about the general posture that we've had towards the media lately. A couple weeks ago, we did a news conference on the Lucas Gerhard case in Lansing. It was a press conference. We invited everybody, and some reporters came out and they interviewed me. We talked to 9 and 10 News. We talked to WLNS. We talked to someone else who I think didn't even identify himself, and none of them actually covered this story at all. Well, I think that's not entirely true. I think one local news outlet, I think it was the CBS affiliate, did a story about it, but they used no statements from me whatsoever, and they didn't even bother interviewing Representative Riley, who was the sponsor of the bill that came out. So kudos once again to usagainstmedia.com, because they actually did cover this story. In fact, I can put it on the screen here. Hold on, let me put it up right here.
Us Against Media is like the Bizarro World Gonwer.
Yeah, exactly. They've been doing some great original stories, but they have this story here. They interviewed me. They interviewed Mark Gerhard, the father of Lucas, the defendant. They interviewed Representative Riley, and they posted all the original video. Something that every other corporate news outlet didn't want to bother doing. And by the way, they also had this great original story just came out last week, planning to apparently there's a plan afoot to be shipping illegal immigrants. They call them refugees, although that's not what refugees are, by the way. There's a complete legal distinction between illegal aliens and refugees. That's
economic migrants would be the best word to describe them.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. I liked illegal alien, but economic migrants. But that does not make you an asylee. That's a different thing altogether. But at any rate, so original reporting, great stuff. So just another shout out to them. But it also reminded me just before the election. I think it was the first or second week of October 2020. I got a call from ABC Nightline. Now, for any of our viewers that don't know what ABC Nightline, your parents might remember them. They used to be a really prominent major media news program. And I did some interviews for them back in like last April when we were having the lockdown protests, and they interviewed me for a while. I think they used none of that footage, but they wanted to, they gave me a call and said, hey, we want to talk about politics in Michigan and what's going on with Whitmer and blah, 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 blah. And I said, yeah, fine. I don't care. I'll talk to the media. Sure. No problem. And it didn't take long before it was absolutely obvious what they were entirely intending to do was to frame me as some sort of associate or supporter of the defendants in the conspiracy to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. And unfortunately for them, I've been doing news media for over a decade now, and I'm wise to their tricks and gave them absolutely nothing. So lo and behold, nothing that anybody that they interviewed for that entire segment ever aired. And that's the way the media operates. If you don't give them the story they're looking for, they won't report on it. And the big news this past week was this new development that, as I told them, and of course this is what they did not want to report to their viewers because their entire angle was this is a big right-wing conspiracy against Gretchen Whitmer, was that no less than 12 of the 17 people that were said to be involved in kidnapping Whitmer turned out to be FBI informants. A majority of the entire operation.
So it's another case of FBI foils FBI terror plot. Now give us more money and we'll take more of your freedoms.
Yeah, it seems more like the FBI created the plot, same as they did with the Hootery back in, I think that was like way back in 2011. It was the same story. Everyone's charges got dismissed when it turned out it was all the FBI behind everything. And of course, the only purpose the entire thing served was as a political narrative. That's what they were driving at is, how dare you criticize Gretchen Whitmer's lockdowns because that's going to encourage more people to kidnap her. And of course, that was just complete gibberish. The reality is it's incredible that nobody in Michigan really actually carried out any kind of attempt to kidnap Whitmer, considering she did actually conspire to deprive all of us of our lives, our families, our livelihoods, our ability to put food on our table, our prosperity, and all, I think, in the end, simply to generate sympathy for herself and to influence the election.
And don't forget the nursing home genocide, housing all those people in the nursing homes, housing the COVID patients there, to bring the death total up so they could, put it around Trump's neck and try to ruin him. And the mail-ins and all that stuff. So yeah, the patriots in Michigan are incredibly civil, incredibly decent people. And, they protest tyranny. We went to all those protests, or most of them at least, even the one that was supposedly so bad where the people with guns went into the Capitol. It wasn't a mostly peaceful protest. It was a peaceful protest.
Yeah.
And the message was sent. That's the Second Amendment right. We can have guns in the people's house. So yeah, it was incredibly timid, almost resistance against Whitmer. But another angle on this, the Whitmer kidnapping, was that they kind of did it right after Trump said, stand back and stand by to the Proud Boys. And that was the big thing, was that Trump encouraged these people to kidnap Whitmer, even though they had been like working some of these guys for like 7 months. I think that's when they chose to do this, was in an October surprise, so that Trump could be called, a domestic terror leader or something like that. And of course, no one that didn't really work. But at the same time, these 4 or 5 guys got ensnared in this phony plot.
And by the way, this is what this defendant, by the way, I don't know any details enough. I don't follow the case closely enough to know among the 5 people charged who's whom and who said what or anything like that. I guess one of them pled guilty, although all that proves is they decided that was the safest route. I mean, that's often the way it goes in criminal defense is, if you can take a plea and not face the risk of facing far more serious charges, you'll do that. And I think that just happened in one of the January 6th cases. But this guy's not. And again, I don't know anything about Caleb Franks, but here he says, we are going to be pursuing, we're going to be pursuing an entrapment defense only through the diligent efforts of government informants and undercover agents as Mr. Franks end up as framed as a lawless agitator. And they go on here and they say, I'll just jump down to the conclusion here. I'll post the link in the description for this document, but they say in the conclusion, we are going to be pursuing an entrapment defense. Mr. Franks will raise the defense of entrapment at trial. Rule 16 and Brady list call for the disclosure of all materials that could contribute to preparation of such a defense. Counsel asks the court to order the government to produce all materials related to confidential human sources used in this case, the qualifications and the vetting they underwent, their performance and their recommendations and their communication with agents, any instructions and admonishments they received, and all the materials discussed above. They're fighting back. Of course, if the real agenda was just to dirty up the conservatives before the election, then the FBI already achieved its objective, and this is just the defense trying to prevent them from getting the icing on the cake in that respect.
Yeah, and if the justice is served, like I think it eventually was in the Hatari case, that will be grotesquely underreported and swept under the rug and be a blip on the media radar. Whereas Whitmer the alleged Whitmer kidnapping, dominated at least a day or two worth of news cycles in America. So this shows yet again that the fake news is the enemy of the people. Yeah,
that's the way the media operates. But anyway, this query from Merce News does raise an interesting question, talking about what, if anything, we might do relating to Anne Boleyn, other than what we've already done, which is to expose that email, which I think is devastating. The fact that she has just come out against audits. In fact, let me show you something else I got here.
And she also murdered the voter ID bill, too.
Oh, did she? Well, if that's an initiated law, that might be coming back. But here's a funny thing. I got this survey. It came to me in a text message, and it's clearly a survey intended to be of Republican precinct delegates. Surveyors, when pollsters do these surveys, they always make it anonymous, which has a fair scientific value because you don't want your recipients knowing who's surveying you. But based on the questions, you can see clearly this is leading towards questions about things they'd only care what the Republican precinct delegates' opinions are. They ask about Attorney General, they ask about Secretary of State, they ask about the integrity of the election process, but Attorney General and Secretary of State right there. These are races that are chosen by the state delegates who are elected by the precinct delegates in county conventions. And here's this interesting question. If a convention race for Secretary of State were held today, whom would you be most likely to support? Activist Christina Caramo or undecided or somebody else? There's no one else on that list. No one else on that list. So maybe Anne Boleyn is not as interested in running for Secretary of State as maybe she used to be. Maybe it's something to do with that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think she ruined herself. We've gotten the word out about it a lot, about her betrayals, but I think that she probably listened to some political consultants like, oh, you can't go too hardcore for the truth and against electoral fraud. She made a really, really stupid mistake, and now her political career is hopefully dead.
Yeah, look at how these other questions are trying to frame the issue. How much confidence do you have, if any, in the integrity of the election process and the accuracy of the vote count in Michigan? Do you believe Joe Biden and the Democrats stole the 2020 election? When it comes to Joe Biden winning the 2020 election, which statement best reflects your belief? Joe Biden definitely won. Joe Biden probably won, but there is more we can do to secure our elections. Joe Biden probably did not win, but it's time to move on, pass election reforms, and focus on the next elections. Gosh, that sounds a little more fleshed out than these other thoughts. It's almost like it's a talking point. And then how this other one's cast. Joe Biden definitely did not win, and nothing else matters until we prove it. I mean, there might be a middle value between these two, right? Where Joe Biden maybe probably did not win, maybe probably definitely did not win, but moving on and nothing else matters is kind of two extremes there. Oh, who cares what happened in the 2020 election versus we only care what happened in the 2020 elections. We can't have both, I guess, but
yeah, why can't we pass election reforms while looking forward to 2022 and vetting candidates and trying to win then? I don't get why they're mutually exclusive. In fact, I think they go hand in hand.
They're testing competing framings. They're testing, this is the framing that someone in the Tea Party grassroots outside establishment is going to maybe run on versus this is what our people are going to run on, saying, yeah, well, we can say things happen. And actually they clarify this in the next one. How about this one? When evaluating candidates for office, how likely are you to support a candidate who believes there is nothing that can be done about the 2020 election, but believes there was fraud and supports election reforms like mandatory voter ID? Is that good enough for you? Is that good enough for you? That's what they're asking. And then this one. What about a candidate who doesn't believe there was enough fraud to change the outcome of the 2020 election, but believes that even a little fraud is unacceptable and supports election reforms to secure future elections? And then this one. What about a candidate who voted for President Trump, which we can't prove, but believes the best path forward for the Republican Party is to focus on securing future elections with mandatory voter ID and not looking behind us at 2020? Now, notice the phrasing in this one. Securing future elections, but with only mandatory voter ID. Is that the only thing that needs to be fixed? I can think of a few other things. And why not looking back at 2020? I mean, why not say, as I might say, all the facts in the world can't reverse the outcome of 2020, but the truth is still important. Why wouldn't an establishment candidate want to have that kind of message? And then we get this one. How much will you settle for? What about a candidate who does not believe the election was stolen, but is willing to fight for reforms to make sure there is zero fraud in the 2022 and 2024 elections? Yeah, that's what they're going to do. They're going to deny everything that happened in 2020, but they're going to make sure that it can't possibly happen in 2022 and 2024. Yeah, this sounds legit. This sounds like a smart guy I'd follow. Would you?
Yeah, they're trying to nuance some position for whoever their chosen candidate is. I think we all, those of us who are paying attention can tell who they want as a candidate. But they're trying to nuance these positions for this guy who is their chosen candidate, who doesn't really have any positions that he's ran on in the past because he's never run for an office. So I think there's an obvious agenda afoot here. Yeah,
and then here's the hard test right here. Do you prefer a candidate who is fighting hard to overturn the results of the 2020 election, or a candidate who has the best chance to defeat the Democrat Secretary of State and Attorney General in the upcoming election? Notice, please, a candidate, singular, Secretary of State and Attorney General, plural. This is the contrast they're going to be looking to establish. Is so-and-so outsider wacko focused entirely on trying to relitigate 2020, which we can't solve. But we want a candidate that's most focused on the next election. Because obviously we can't have both. I mean, where's my option for I wouldn't support either candidate unless they can manage both? I mean, this is how they set low expectations. Yeah, we can't have a candidate calling the 2020 election fraudulent because there's certain elements of the party that don't want that. And therefore, automatically, the only alternative, the only binary is either you accept the results of the 2020 election or you're unelectable. That's where this is the earliest we've seen of how they're going to be framing these issues. But this is where it's going. So there you have it, folks. By the way, this was, I thought at least interesting. Their choices for Attorney General are Tom Leonard and Matt DePerno, which, if the GOP establishment doesn't like Matt DePerno, maybe putting out a hit on him wasn't the smartest thing to do. Like, if they thought that was going to alienate him from the Republican establishment, mainstream, Trump supporting base, and not just drive them into his arms, well, I think that was a mistake. I think that was a miscalculation, but hey, what do I know? So
Sure was, and it makes the grassroots much more likely to just go scorched earth if it's not DePerno, or if they don't get their guy to go scorched earth and say, screw the party. How are they any different than Democrats? So, yeah, we, McBroom, Tyson, but Bizon have, just have been done despicable things and to the base, and they should be held in the lowest level of contempt imaginable.
I mean, the heck of it is, if all they did was criticize DePerno's arguments and statements and evidence, I'd probably agree with a good chunk of it. But sticking the Attorney General on him and accusing him with zero evidence, which is, funnily enough, the same thing they accused him of. They accused him of having no evidence. They, with no evidence, accused him of personally profiteering because he raises money for litigation, which is, the constitutional right of citizens. I mean, that's part of freedom of assembly, is raising money for your cause. And, lawyers aren't free. Legal work isn't free. And it's not like lawyers just have free access to the legal system. It's not like they don't need money to be able to marshal evidence, to be able to call witnesses. They just casually assume this must all be for his personal benefit. If they hadn't made that claim, if all they do is attack his arguments and attack his facts, that would be one thing. But instead, they summoned the Attorney General, who they claim to oppose, and they made him the martyr. So good job, Republicans. And now they're going to start attacking us for talking about this, because hey, the big message now is we need to unify. And what's Rescue Michigan doing? Not that we wanted to, but we've been calling them out. And now we're the bad guys because we're opposing unification. Because we're bringing in this, facts and logic and criticizing the things that they do. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No problem. They're blowing it big time, and it's really shameful what's happening. They just talk about shooting themselves in the foot, but I think it goes back to a lot of the Republicans enforced the fraud since the election. They wanted to sweep it under the rug. They have a vested interest in sweeping it under the rug. They want Trump gone. They probably think that they have a better chance of beating some of the leaders probably think they have a better chance of beating Whitmer with Trump out of the picture and playing more to the middle. They're listening to their lobbyists and their consultants. They are totally divorced from any sort of connection to their constituents. So they take this, path, and probably, because they never liked Trump to begin with, they probably genuinely believed that there was no fraud, didn't look into it, didn't care about the whistleblowers, didn't read the affidavits, just listened to what their lobbyists told them. And as a result, they have shot themselves in the foot repeatedly, and it's been a nightmare. And it's crazy to think about it, but it's what's happening is that the Republicans are acting in such a horrible way, or many of them are, that it's really sending a lot of people to the fringes and to follow hucksters who are in turn make the anti-voter fraud movement look like clowns. So it's like a downward spiral for the entire conservative movement right now, and it's it's heartbreaking and tragic to watch.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted unity. We were trying to present the plan of here's how you create unity. I mean, one of the things that we were talking about in our proposal for how you fix Michigan's broken election law is I mean, and we identified several things: the rights of poll workers, the rights of poll challengers, the apportionment and correct hiring of poll workers, signature matches, absentee ballots, all these different things. But one of the things that we said is, look, we have never claimed that the Dominion machines were flipping votes, but don't give people nothing. Give people confidence. Have a procedure where you can have audits of the paper ballots. Have a procedure where you've got, for example, you don't need to have these machines connecting to the internet for any reason ever. Take steps that will at least diminish the ability of people to make these claims. And what happened? They gave our bills no hearing. They said, buzz off. We know what we're doing. We're the smart set, right? And what's happened? It's all blown up in their faces. And again, even not giving our bills a hearing, that's not why the grassroots is mad right now. They're mad because 10,000 people turned in petitions calling for a forensic audit, and their response to that was to sick the attorney general on the leading people calling for forensic audits. Absolute backfire. Embarrassing. But I think this leads to, the discussion we want to have tonight, although we've been going for almost a half hour, but I think frankly we've made most of our points anyway. But I want to talk about loyalty, party loyalty, what it means to be a Republican. And there's actually not enough discussion and debate on this, I think. But right now in the party establishment circles, people are talking about, we got to unify. And it's like, yeah, we want to. But it's funny how unity sometimes seems like it's a one-way street. You know what I mean? The best example, the greatest example, the most shocking example to me was what happened in 2016 when Donald Trump became the nominee for the Republican Party. And they started with trying every single thing possible to deny him the nomination when it was clear he had the votes. It was clear he had the mandate from the Republican grassroots going into that state, into that national convention. And there was movement afoot to sabotage him. And Trump brought in someone who was an expert at national conventions, Paul Manafort, and he negotiated the victory, the nomination, and all that. But what happened after that? Remember Paul Ryan refusing to endorse Donald Trump? You remember Governor Rick Snyder of Michigan refusing to endorse Trump?
Don't forget Small Business Administration leader Brian Calley also refused to endorse Trump.
Oh yeah, Brian Calley too. And here's the thing that boggles my mind. This is not something that was considered until 2016 to be a point of contention within the Republican Party, or for that matter, even in the Democrat Party within their own party's nominees. The idea is, if you're an officer of the party, your job is to elect Republicans top to bottom in the ticket in your jurisdiction. And if you're leadership in a legislature, if you're the Speaker of the House of Representatives, your job is to preserve your caucus's majority. And that means having as much unity as humanly possible in your party. Would people have picked Paul Ryan for Speaker of the House if you had told them, by the way, he's going to oppose your nominee for president? Or for that matter, even governor of Michigan? Rick Snyder, his whole job, he's not supposed to want to have to deal with a Democrat majority in the House or the Senate. And if he has a fractured party that doesn't want to support the nominee, that won't unite behind their nominee, that's a problem for his agenda. But not only did Paul Ryan refuse to endorse the nominee, which has never happened in the history of mainstream Republican nominees ever, not only did Rick Snyder refuse to endorse the nominee of his party, which has never happened in the history of the Republican Party, to my knowledge at least. But here's the amazing thing. Nobody called them out on it. Can you think of one person, one prominent Republican, one person in the media saying, oh my God, the Republican governor is not endorsing the Republican nominee for president? The Speaker of the House, whose political future depends on winning majority this coming election, is not endorsing our nominee. We should be removing him right now. Why wouldn't every Republican member in Congress say, what in the world is going on? Are you crazy? But no, that was allowed to be the new normal. Am I wrong? Can you think of anything, anybody? I mean, besides me personally, saying, oh my God, this is madness. That the Republican Party as a whole is not condemning the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the United States Congress or a governor?
I mean, maybe the Trump base, people in the Trump base, yeah, like you and others who,
hardcore.
Sure, right. Anyway, they brought it up, but all the same people who used to bash us in the head about party unity, how we have to unify around the rhinos who screwed us back at during the Ron Paul days, the Tea Party days. All of them were total hypocrites. They turned on a dime. They threw Trump under the bus, thinking he was going to lose by like 20 points, and they can all pat themselves on the back and destroy the grassroots once and for all. They miscalculated, and as far as I know, there was never any repercussions against any of them for their extreme disloyalty and being traitors.
Yeah. And, I've seen it in smaller races too. My whole background has been working for anti-establishment Republican candidates. And oftentimes after a Republican primary, they will have what they call a unity breakfast. And that's when, after the primary election is over, the losing candidate is supposed to endorse the winning candidate and say, okay, we've had our dispute. Now's the time to unify. When Gary Glenn won the nomination for state representative in 2014, his opponent didn't show up to the unity breakfast. When Jeff Noble won the Republican primary in 2016, his opponent didn't show up to the unity breakfast. It happens. And then
it happens. And I got a good anecdote too I want to throw in there. In North Carolina, there's a gentleman by the name of Hassan Hurnett who ran for state party chair there, I think back in 2014. And he won upstart campaign, just dominated among the precinct delegates and had a lot of charisma, and was, I think, the first African-American GOP party chair in North Carolina history. Once he got into office, they pulled all the fundraising from him. At one point, they locked him out of the website. Then when he got back in the website, they accused him of hacking the website. Then they locked him out of his own state GOP building, and then he was unceremoniously dumped against the will of the delegates by the state central committee in North Carolina and replaced with whatever rhino they wanted to replace him with. And now North Carolina is basically a blue state. I wonder why. Because the GOP shot themselves in the foot so these operatives could keep their gravy train rolling in a little while longer.
Yeah, I wonder why higher level Republicans don't start pushing for candidates to sign a pledge that says, if I fail to endorse the nominee, absent criminal allegation or something like that, I'm obligated to. And maybe they shouldn't have to, and maybe they can campaign on that. But it's amazing how they expect unity when unity and cooperation is only ever a one-way street. If we lose, we're expected to support whoever wins. If they lose, they will not support our side. Well, that's not the way it works. It's not the way civilized people operate. But speaking of not the way civilized people operate, this is good to pivot to something else. Someone sent me this the other day, and I was happy to see it, because this is the legal history of the downfall of Laura Cox as Republican chair. And this is, I'm sure people in the audience, people watching have heard about this, but Laura Cox was the chair of the Michigan Republican Party in the last 2 years. She was defeated on February 6th, and by that time she knew she was losing. badly. She had actually dropped out of the race. And then, just days before Ron Weiser was to become the chair, she did this. She sent this letter on Republican Party letterhead, February 4th, 2021, to Jonathan Brader, Director of the Bureau of Elections under Secretary of State, Liberal Democrat Jocelyn Benson, probably at the time still a member of the board of the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Libel Center. Dear Mr. Brader, this is a self-report of possible campaign finance violations. And there is this allegation. This is not breaking news. This has been talked about before. I think that Ron Weiser, in his previous term as chair, bribed this guy to drop out of the race for Secretary of State, and that's probably not legal. So then, 5 days later, now Ron Weiser is the chair, and so they acknowledge this has happened, and well, that the letter was sent, not that this actually happened. So they explain, and this is what they say: admitted documentation regarding the purposes, dates, amounts, and blah blah blah. This is their explanation for why this stuff happened, and this is not correct. This was sent. Oh, I'm sorry. No, this letter was sent to the chairman. This is from the Bureau of Elections saying, hey, we got this letter and blah, blah, blah. Then the state party responded. Again, this is still from the SOS. And once again, sending this letter, predicated a written report concerning alleged misuse of funds and blah, blah, blah. This is the response. And look, this came back that same day. Writing on behalf of the MRP, you understand that this was a disgruntled person. This was exaggerated. This submission is withdrawn. This is not if there's not a mechanism, it should be treated as from Mrs. Cox personally, not the MRP. And this goes on. Now a week later, they say we understand your efforts and blah blah blah. And this goes back and forth. And again, Mrs. Cox's request was speculative with no evidence or documentation. So now the SOS is involved. And then we have, they attach, this is the agreement to Stan Grote. And by the way, this is too much detail to go through. I mean, essentially, this is a legal dispute. Whether or not this is right or not, we can go through it. But what's the point? Because we'll get to the resolution in a second here. So they say everything is on the up and up. SOS says, we don't know. So what the outcome is, the final outcome, so they're saying we're defending our rights, we're going to protect them. The SOS says we were going to probably go after you here. So then we have here we go. Conciliation agreement. This is an out-of-court settlement. And in an out-of-court settlement, neither party admits guilt one way or the other. They just say, we're going to pay you $200,000 to make this go away. And when you have an out-of-court settlement, typically what they're doing is they're not admitting guilt because they say, we could fight this, but the legal fees in criminal or even civil court can easily cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Discovery is intrusive. It is expensive. It is distracting. It sucks away resources. And they say, we'll just pay you $200,000 to make this go away without admitting that you're right, because maybe you're not right, but it'd be easier to make this go away than to deal with you. And they agreed to it. So they're just saying, okay, we're sending you $200,000. Actually, hold on, let me clarify here. This is the allegation here in the middle of the screen here of expenditures totaling $200,000, but the conciliation agreement is right here. They're paying $200,000, the entire amount that's in dispute, which is a generous settlement because that's right there. $200,000 is the entire amount in question. So $200,000 of Republican donors' money had to be paid to make the SOS go away. And for only one reason. Because Laura Cox was mad that she wasn't going to get reelected. And she decided to burn down the whole operation. Sorry, go ahead, Shane.
And because the handlers behind her who got the boot and failed and lost so many races also are butthurt that they're on the outside too. So it's more than Laura Cox is not an intelligent person. She's not intelligent enough to mastermind a plot like this. people are behind her, pushing her to do this 100%. And you can't forget her perverted, sleazy used car salesman husband, Mike Cox, as well, who cheers on Dana Nessel and tweets now, that scumbag.
Well, I would hope, besides just Laura Cox herself, I hope everybody that was involved in this would be persona non grata in any Republican effort, any Republican campaign, anything. Why in the world would you trust a traitor? And whoever told Laura Cox, hey, this is a good idea to bring this, the traitor in my view, right? Where's that party loyalty? I'm sure Laura Cox pledged she was a loyal Republican when she took office, but then she didn't hesitate to burn down the operation. This damaged us politically and financially. I mean, not the end of the world, but this wasn't good. This was embarrassing.
And also, you got to remember that, Nessel's kind of rolling this up all into what's going on with her investigation into vote fraud whistleblowers too. So this is giving her additional ammo to go after good Republicans, all because Laura Cox had her hissy fit and her handlers had their hissy fit. And unfortunately, some good people in the grassroots kind of went along with this plot. Were kind of duped into pushing this along and hurting us all very, very deeply. Yeah.
Now, I would say Laura Cox is gone now. I'd hope forever. I would be curious because there are some people in Lansing, and I'm not gonna name names because I don't need to, but the people in the know who her consultants were. They know who did this. If those people are ever brought back, then that tells you how loyal they are to the party or to the cause or to anything. I got another funny story. This is an email from my county chair. I'm in Washtenaw County. We're not the most effective Republican organization under the sun. But hey, Shane, you don't know anything about this guy. You don't know his name, do you?
Whose name is that?
David Frey?
I don't think so, no.
So you have no idea what I'm about to show you?
Nope. Lay it on me.
Let me know, how would you respond if you got an email like this? If you're a county executive committee member and you get this email. Subject line is, I resign. Hi, everybody. Wow, that would make a few people happy. Don't know why. It seems like since I've been on the executive committee, we have some people who are do-bees and some are don't-bees. Lots of criticism, but no action. Sorry, I meant I'm resigned to the effect that I'm about ready to cancel our booth at the Ann Arbor Art Fair. Out of 40 members of the executive committee, only 10 have signed up. And out of those who have, we've signed up for multiple slots on multiple days. How many of you were in the flag caravan honking your horns and waving flags, then eating our hot dogs? Probably made you feel real good, but had absolutely no impact on helping change minds or get voters to support us. And no one in the public even knew the flag wavers were from the Republican Party. Nice spelling of waivers there, but okay. I personally have, over for the past 5 years, sacrificed so much of my time to participate in our activities. Wickham and I have spent, especially Wick, has spent an enormous amount of time working on this project, and I'm totally disappointed with the participation level. Please sign up to help by 6 p.m. today. If not, I will most likely cancel. I've got a lot going on in my life, too. And I think possibly it's time I spend more time taking care of my personal life than spending my time for something no one else cares about. And no, I won't resign. Dave. You don't know Dave, Shane. What's your take on this guy?
Seems like an incredibly petty, bad leader, blaming everyone else because no one wants to participate because probably due to his bad leadership that's disenfranchised people, and just the typical Republican leader figure that shows why conservatives have conserved nothing and why the Republican Party is a national laughingstock.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of person who cares about the future of their county party would say this stuff? I mean, you might think, well, obviously for whatever reason, and there's no sense getting into the behind the scenes drama. It's not important, but on its face, on its face, no one's signing up for my event. By the way, I was looking for them. That's why the screen was flickering earlier. I was trying to find the response emails, but some people were saying I tried to sign up and I couldn't because the website form wasn't working right. But even if that hadn't been the case, I mean, if you're a leader and what you're doing is intentionally demoralizing people, intentionally throwing shade, and sarcastically saying, I resign. And no, I won't resign. I know you all want me to resign, but I won't resign. Like, how much do you actually care about the cause? When you're at that point. At that point, your county party is not your cause, it's your fiefdom. I mean, what an embarrassment. But this is...
Yeah, I mean, that is how a lot of these, county chairs and district chairs and any little bit of power, the district chair is unpaid volunteer position. It's not something that you're getting big money to do. It should be a case of servant leadership where you want to help the district, you want to help volunteers, you want to empower leaders. But no, that's not how it goes. It's a big everyone is jockeying for position. They don't want to help other people. It's all about their ego and feeling like they're important and a status symbol in society. And it's that country club mindset that really I joined the Republican Party to kind of try to root that out and get the grassroots involved. And it has gotten better over the years, but a lot of these guys are still in positions of power and they're still holding us back with their awful leadership.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in my county in 2010, the Tea Party really came into power, and some of the pre-existing people in the party got swept out in the executive committee elections. And those people, their attitude was like, you don't want us, you don't like us, fine, see you, good riddance, good luck. And that's fair. I mean, if this guy is mad because he's a lame duck, if he cares about the party, if he cares about the cause, he'd say, look, you know what, fine, I guess you guys don't like me. Can't say I agree with you, but obviously, we have to have unity. We have to have unity, don't we? No, they will cling to power, even when there's no power to really even be had. This is the Washtenaw County GOP, for crying out loud. We have, I think, one county commission seat left, and everything else is lost in our county. And this guy's still fighting for his own seat. I mean, how embarrassing. How embarrassing. So, if you want to talk to me about party loyalty, my loyalty is to our issues, it's to our cause. And if I run for county office or state office, I'm not going to, but even as an executive committee member, I view the party as a place where we, in private and in our elections, decide who we want to be our leaders based on who we want to be representing us on the issues. And that's all well and good. When the time comes to be unifying, that's fine too. But the people who are telling us we have to settle for what the establishment wants us to have, which is people that have no loyalty to our issues whatsoever. I mean, I can say, look, if I'm on my executive committee, I'm not going to disparage a nominee in the party in Washtenaw County, but I'm not obligated to lend them my support. I'm not obligated to sign up for your art fair booth. And by the way, seeing how this very chair has treated some new people, I don't want to be associated with what people coming into our party have experienced. So that's why I'm not doing that. The way I see it is I don't have to be negative, don't have to be nasty. In this case, I think maybe we do have to, because we have to talk about these issues and have to expose them, have to expose this double standard. But, I prefer not to be on the side of airing dirty laundry if it's not for a productive, effective purpose. But I don't want to be lectured by certain others saying, well, you're not loyal to the party and you're doing more harm than good. show us you live by those principles first, is my opinion. Hey, by the way, Shane, your video is moving very slowly, so I'm not sure if I'm still with you, but feel free at any time to chime in, of course.
Oh yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, it's just bad connection, I guess.
The audio is doing better. I'm sure it's my fault. I have limited internet signal at my house. I at one point, put you back on. At one point tried to get Comcast to serve me. I think they're supposed to, and they just have some kind of glitch in their system. But then they always come back and remind me why I don't want to be their customer. So I'm still using good old-fashioned cellular phone service to be my internet signal, which works pretty much fine most of the time. So be it. But anyway, I would say also, though, there is an opposite extreme that we should talk about too, and that's the people who are constantly always attacking the party. And the problem with those people is that they get written off as people that they're never going to bring in and never going to try. And that has the opposite effect. The effect is, well, why try pleasing them in the first place? Nothing we ever say will please certain people, so let's not even bother trying to win them over, because they can't be won over, because they're screaming and yelling that our country is destroyed, the Republican Party is sabotaged, and there's nothing else we can do about it, so da-da-da-da-da-da. And they either end up not voting or voting third party, or at the very least never getting involved. And there is a lot of people out there, and I understand from all the things we've talked about how frustrating politics can be. And we talked about this in our last video when Jenna Ellis said, I'm quitting the GOP. Where are you going to go? Where else is there?
Yeah, it's it's very frustrating that people would rather take their ball and go home. You see activists come in and they're like a ball of fire and they want to do all these things to help rebuild the party and in the grassroots. And they read some dumb Facebook post or some QAnon babble, and now they're not going to do anything but post on Facebook and read dumb and watch dumb videos and send money to charlatans. There's so many cases of this, and it's incredibly frustrating, but you just got to work with the people that you do have and kind of tune these people out. And some of them have some good points. I mean, the GOP is, as we've been talking about all day, it's an embarrassment, but at the same time, we have more numbers than we've ever had. We need to be recruiting delegates. We need to be fortifying our organizations. And if, like with me, I'm the 11th district chair.
Yeah.
I know there's several other patriotic district chairs. There's patriotic county chairs. I know the Hillsdale County GOP is on Mike Shirkey, like white on rice. So that's good. That's what you can do when you organize effectively and take over. You can have a big impact. And if you don't, if you're not able to take over, you can build, a city GOP group. You can build a county GOP group, a patriot group, Constitution Club group.
Yeah.
There's ways to organize and build your power if you're boxed out. And then after you've built those organizations, you can use them to take over the GOP and put in solid leadership. So it all begins at the grassroots level. But a lot of people these days are desperate. They're not thinking clearly, and quite frankly, many of them are lazy and don't want to actually do the work that goes into leading. So they'd rather just sit on Telegram or Facebook and spread Q gibberish all day. It's pathetic.
Yeah, and a lot of that people, often people will say, well, the fact that we're a two-party country that's so dysfunctional and the two parties are both corrupt and blah, blah, blah. And my retort to that is, how much better do you think it actually is in countries that have multi-party systems? You've got, European countries that have 3, 5, 7, 9 major parties. And the reality is in those places, most of the time what actually happens, and of course there's intricacies of their political systems, but usually the way it ends up working is that the parties end up cutting deals with one another. And this is completely insulated from the voters. Like, I think it's actually a kind of a convenient binary that we've got two parties. We've got one party that is clearly for tyranny, for big government, for the total destruction of our civil liberties. In the Republican Party, you've got factions, but you can have debates within the party on this. I mean, the big triumph of Donald Trump was that he rejected the neocon orthodoxy that was in power during the George W. Bush years, and George Sr. for that matter. But he got in office campaigning on border security, campaigning on getting us out of Middle East wars and wars elsewhere, and really having an America First platform. And that's a platform that we need to be in there defending and not being outvoted on, because that's what the establishment's trying to do. They are trying to outvote us. They are trying to rout us, and they're trying to make sure that the choices that we have in the next election and the election after that and every election after that are between candidates that are going to be approved by the globalist establishment that is more or less the same on all these major issues, on the budget, on taxes, on foreign policy, on domestic policy, on civil liberties. That is the corporate establishment. And getting out of the GOP does not do anybody any favors. And the other thing I would just say too is it's always good to position yourself that your vote is in play. And what I mean by that is, you know, if you're lobbying your lawmakers, if you're writing letters as a right winger to a Democrat politician, they're going to say, I'm not going to get your vote no matter what. So I'm not going to, I don't care. And if you're a Republican writing a letter to your Republican lawmaker and you're saying, I know you're great on everything, but this one issue, I need your vote here. They're going to say, you're mine. I know I've got your vote. You're not going to vote Democrat. I mean, that's where the pro-life movement's always been locked in, is they are a wholly owned subsidiary of the Republican Party because they know pro-lifers never going to vote Democrat because they're openly pro-abort. So that's why they get away with never accomplishing anything. And the right path is somewhere in the middle. And say, look, I may actually vote for you. I may not vote for you. This is my issue. I'm not going to vote for a Republican who condones lockdowns. I'm not going to vote for a Republican that condones election fraud. And shame on you if you do, because you're putting your own career in peril anyway. But, you know, I'm not going to vote for someone who is demoralizing our cause and voting against our core issues. You know, I might hold my nose and vote for you if you give me something, but if you give me nothing, what they're mostly giving us is nothing, then the Republicans have chosen the path of pain. But that's on them. I mean, we want them in a place where there's a question of how many votes are they going to lose if they don't do what we're asking for. And if they give us nothing, that's going to be a lot. If they give us everything, that's going to be very few. They want to be somewhere in the middle, but they want to be as far to the left as they can possibly get away with. And the question is not what I'm going to settle for, not what you, Shane, are going to settle for. It's going to be what the individuals, the voters, the grassroots choose to settle for. But that'll be shaped by the people who are getting involved and the people who are being active. So, like, you know, this is why all along we've been saying, you know, pursue these reasonable election reforms. We're not saying you have to do everything that some people are asking, but give us these big, important ones. If they're going to turn around and give us nothing, well, then don't be upset when we don't have your back in the next election. Sorry, Shane, I interrupted again.
I was saying this might be a good time to plug those FACL trainings that are coming up.
Oh, yeah. Well, by the way, the one in Gaylord was last Saturday. If anybody had attended, I'd love to hear your feedback. I was going to attend the one in West Bloomfield this Saturday. Unfortunately, I have a family commitment. My cousin is having his first baby, so I'm going out to visit him and my dad and my grandpa, who's 93 now, so I can't miss that opportunity. But there is a FACL school in West Bloomfield. I will post a link in the description. That is this weekend. There is a campaign school they're doing coming up in Brighton in August, so I'll post a link to that as well. And they will host schools in your town as long as you can commit to bringing 20 people to the school. So I will post a link to that as well. There's a form you can sign up, but it is a school that teaches these very same principles we've been talking about, and about the importance of being, on one hand, not a wholly owned subsidiary of the Republican establishment, being a freedom fighter, but also being someone who is operating in the realm of political possibility, and someone that is going to have a real impact on what the future of the election is. And that's not by dropping out and screaming and yelling and saying there's nothing we can do if we don't solve what happened in the last election, but also saying things are not going to happen if you guys don't do real things that are going to be effective for our causes. So I will put the link in the description to those videos. So we're coming at just upon an hour right now. I think we've covered a lot of material. I think we had some fun showing some documents that some people probably didn't want shown on video, but there you go. That can happen sometimes. So remember, folks, don't put it in writing if you don't want it seen in the news, because things get around. Because apparently MERS News got wind of that email from Ann Boland, and they're looking to corroborate that, which I won't do that without the source's support, but that's a distinct possibility. So there you go. So, hey, anything else you want to add in before we close the video?
Yeah, I mean, just shows how groups like ours, and like you said earlier, us against media, by being in completely independent operations that are independent of any party and the political status quo. We get good information out there, and it gets the eye of the bigger guys, and the ball gets rolling. And social media, even though it's being heavily censored and shuttered to stop us from getting the word out, they don't know how to exactly do that yet. They are still unable to stop the free flow of information. And then, of course, you have the alt platforms, which are taking off. Telegram has something like 500 million subscribers, more than that now. That was like 5 months ago they had that. So they're approaching 1 billion subscribers now, and other platforms like MeWe and Gab are always getting more subscribers as well. So there's always a way to fight. They wouldn't be cracking down this hard on us if they weren't scared, if they didn't know that tens of millions of people are awake and know what's going on, know about the deep state, know who's really in charge, know about the uniparty, know about the voter fraud, and they're not going to forget. So even though we talk about all the bad things that are happening, people falling for disinformation and going down rabbit holes and being counterproductive, there's still so much hope that we have with the common people of America, with the grassroots. That's where we have to get involved and be smart, and go to FACL trainings, and also check out the 11th CDRC Pancakes and Politics in Milford on Saturday as well.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, yeah, great points. And it's funny because the big story, and Alex Jones was going crazy yesterday about the talk about censoring text messages and all that. But the fact is, these are acts of desperation because they know they're losing the information war, and they know their censorship campaigns are failing in a big way. And they pulled some trick plays before the last election with Hunter Biden's laptop and the rest. But people are waking up more than ever before, and their means of control are falling apart. So once again, thanks for all that you guys do for liberty. And as always, peace out.
Peace.